Welcome to Hot Takes, Cool Updates, the podcast where two friends from high school reunite and discuss trivial opinions that people for some reason feel strongly about, and we update each other along the way. I'm Lacey.
I'm Jenna, and welcome to the third episode, baby! Let's go!
Whoop, whoop. We got this in the bag.
We do. All right. Today, we are going to discuss Mandela effects. Bum, bum, bum. I'm trying to get really close to my microphone. Bum, 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 bum. No. I can't do sound effects. Okay. So,
solid try, though.
Yeah. So, Lacey, what do you know about Mandela effects?
I know that it was around like 2013 that it was coined when
how do you know the exact date? You literally you know more than I knew when I was researching this.
Oh yeah, 2013, baby. The day. No, I only know that because I was looking it up earlier because you said that we were doing something about it. I'm like, I don't want to go into this not knowing anything. So maybe if I impress her with the date, she'll be like blown out of her mind that she'll think I know more than I actually do. So that's kind of the story behind that.
Well, okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I know that it was coined in 2013 when Nelson Mandela died, and a bunch of people were like, wait a minute, didn't he like die in prison like way back in the 70s, 80s? I don't
80s, yeah.
80s, yeah. So I know that's when it was coined, and yeah, that's what I know. That's my knowledge.
All right. Well, in my very extensive research, as in when I went to one website, I went ahead and just copied what they had to say. I I've heard of Mandela effects in the basic ones, and we'll review the basic ones that I feel like everyone knows about. But also my extensive research beyond the one website that I looked at, I also went to one YouTube channel, and they had some different Mandela effects that I haven't heard of. So cool. What I figured that we would do today is go ahead and review some basic Mandela effects that I thought were that most everybody, if they've heard of Mandela effects, have heard of these specific ones. And then I was going to also review some that I learned about when doing my, again, very, very extensive research that I have a degree in now after watching about probably 20 minutes worth of YouTube videos. So
that's degree worthy.
Yep. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and read off from the website what they defined Mandela effects as. So according to medicalnewstoday.com, which I have no idea if this is a credible website at all, it says the Mandela effect describes a situation in which a person or group of people have a false memory of an event. So as you mentioned earlier, Lacey, that it was coined about a decade ago, so around 2013.
Oh my gosh, that was a decade ago. That's fine. Continue.
Yeah.
There's those feelings.
Yeah. It was coined because, again, like you mentioned, that people were having this recollection of when Nelson Mandela died that in 2013. They said, wait a minute, I thought he was already dead. And I didn't even ask you, did you have that sensation? What was your, I don't know, opinion on it? Like when it happened, did you have the sensation that he was legitimately dying in 2013, or did you have that Mandela effect sensation that he had passed earlier on?
I also thought that he had passed earlier on, actually. Okay. So that was kind of news to me when I found out. I was like, but it also, I'm naturally blonde. So I kind of thought, oh, this is just a blonde moment from Lacey. Shocker, shocker. She was wrong. So when I found out that a bunch of other people were like, that's what I remember too, I was like, oh, it wasn't just a blonde thing. So,
well. So yeah, I had that same feeling. I wasn't alive during the 80s when I thought that he would have died, but because here's the other thing, I thought he had passed away as well.
I could have sworn I learned about it in school. Like I could have sworn I learned in school like about that. So.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I looked up, he served as president of South Africa between 1994 and 1999. So that's the issue. I think that's the main issue with me, is that I'm from the same category of thinking of you. No, I thought he died in the 80s, which means that he would have been president before the 90s. Like it's twofold. It's so it's one, you thought he was the, if you're in the same sort of like thought mind as us, that he thought he died in the 80s, that means he was president of South Africa in the 80s or before that. And so for him to be president between 1994 and 1999, that really messes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and part of it too, I will say that those naysayers will say, oh, maybe you were young at that time, or maybe more like a child at that time. Of course, your memory is going to be off about it. But at that same time, for me, if we were to talk about things like the Clinton presidency and the whole scandal with when he was being impeached for his affair with Monica Lewinsky, and then also things like 9/11, I remember those things very, very clearly, even though I was not yet 18 or older at that when those occurrences happen.
Right.
So that's kind of my thing, is that I remember very clearly things like that, big public events, and I don't remember hearing about Nelson Mandela except for the fact that I felt like he was a person who's already passed and was already president.
Right. No, I'm with you on that. And plus, just to add to that, I remember distinctly calling my mom and being like, I had another blonde moment about this, and I thought that he had died back, in the 80s. And she, who's like now almost 70, so she would have remembered. She was like, I thought he died then too. So it's not, I don't know if they could use just the our age thing, because like other people that are older are also remembering the same thing.
So yeah, that's very, very good point. Because yeah, I didn't think about, asking an adult who would have lived through that. Yeah. And with him being such a prominent figure,
Right.
it would just, that's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So also a little bit more information for those. So again, obviously Mandela effect, it gets the name from Nelson Mandela. Okay, so that's when it began. And to also give a little bit more information for it, according to the same website, the medicalnewstoday.com, which again, I have no idea if it's even a valid website or not, but it gives some features of what a Mandela effect can include. So that would be, again, a person or a group of people having distorted memories in some aspect that are either partially or entirely inaccurate. It's also could be potentially clearly remembering entire events that did not happen, or just several unrelated people sharing similar distorted or inaccurate memories. So again, several unrelated people, meaning it could be, me as a American in the Midwest could not know somebody on the West Coast or something, or someone in a different country having the same erroneous, inaccurate collective memory sort of thing. So really, again, just overall, it occurs when a person believes that their distorted memories are in fact accurate recollections, and that they can clearly remember events that happened differently or events that never occurred at all. Kind of as we go over some of the examples that I have, I'm thinking of, there's definitely two events that I'm thinking of at the top of my head. Actually, there's more than, but there's very specifically one core memory that I want to discuss, that I specifically remember having a core memory to my childhood, that I am really bothered that it's a Mandela effect and considered not real, because it's a core memory that I have.
I need to know what this is, because I'm curious now.
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'll give this first example. So a classic example of a Mandela effect is the movie Shazam, where the actor Sinbad. So the Mandela effect is that there's no movie called Shazam. There's no movie where Sinbad, the actor, has ever played a genie. And the rationale for this is that there was a movie featuring Shaq, the basketball player, called Kazam, I believe, that, where he played a genie. So there's a very similar movie with a similar name, different actor. But the problem with this is that I distinctly remember watching the movie Good Burger, which has Sinbad in it, as the teacher of Keenan and Kel in the movie Good Burger. And I remember seeing advertisements and seeing different things for or just whatever it was on TV for Sinbad's movie Shazam with him as a genie. And I remember recognizing, putting two together, that Sinbad was the teacher in Good Burger, and that he also had this other movie. And I distinctly remember asking my parents, I want to see this movie, can we get this movie? Because I remember this actor being in Good Burger. And I remember asking my parents, like, can we see this movie? I want to see this movie. Like, what happened is I saw the advertisement or saw something about it on TV, and I asked my parents, this actor's in another movie. And I was trying to describe the movie, and I was like, because I telling them like, I want this movie, can we get it? And this was back in the day when we had VHS this and before we had internet at the house. So my parents couldn't like look it up and tell me, what
That's
it was.
true.
They
Yeah.
couldn't look it up online and buy it, or look it up and tell me what it was that, or look at the movie, because it was before we had internet in our home, and it was before things like streaming services and Netflix. It was before DVDs. So I remember this. So I never got the movie because my parents just kind of forgot about it. Because usually, at that time, if a movie was really big, like The Lion King, my parents knew that movie because they took me to see it. So they obviously got me The Lion King because they knew the movie, we saw it in theaters, but this movie they hadn't heard of. So they said, okay, whatever, I'm not going to get it because I haven't heard of it and I don't know what movie she's talking about. But that's just my core memory of that, asking for that specific movie and not getting it and being kind of sad because I was like, oh, I like Sinbad and Good Burger. I want to watch them in a different movie. So that's my whole rant with that.
Man, see, it's one of those situations where like I wish I wasn't, I don't want to say that my parents were super conservative because they weren't, but when it came to like stuff like that, I don't even know if I would have seen like The Good Burger. Like, and I know that that's a thing because like you and I have talked about it before.
But you really haven't seen Good Burger to this day?
To this day, no.
I'm telling you what, like even as an adult watching that movie, it ranks to me like as such an amazing movie, like really, really good.
Put it on my to watch list because I have a lot.
Yeah, but like watch it and report back at a later date because it's super funny to me. Like even as an adult, like I find it funny. So
yes, I shall do that. I just finished a series that I was watching earlier, so that'll be something to hold me over until I find a new one.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Yay. So yeah, I guess with that one, like again, I like kind of looked into it since we said, and like that was one of the big ones because I wanted to at least be familiar with the big ones, and like that was one that to me I was like, I don't remember any of that, but I blame a lot of that on like my childhood and me not remembering my childhood in general. But like, not again, I don't want to say super conservative,
a little more sheltered,
a little bit more than the average American child. So I don't remember that one. That makes me sad, but I'm sure that a lot of people listening are like, I remember that.
Yeah, or they could say I'm full of it. So but I think almost kind of be glad in a way because it makes you feel like you feel like you're almost being gaslit, like you feel like you're going crazy, like I know this happened, I have a memory of it, and then you feel like you're being like, I don't know, like you feel like you're going insane if you've ever had anyone kind of like gaslight you, and you feel like it's that same feeling of like that drop in your stomach of like, am I the crazy one because I had this going on in me. And so
right.
So I also kind of wanted to go over, before we go into more examples, I just wanted to go over real quick. According to this same wonderful website that is totally possibly not accurate at all, medicalnewstoday.com, because it was the first website that came up when I looked it up. It said that it gave a couple potential causes of Mandela effect. So I figured, that would be kind of fun to go over for those who may have heard of Mandela effects, but maybe don't know the reasoning behind it, possibly why it happens. So what I have here, so one potential reason is that, of course, just false memories of just when a memory contains elements of fact that, is close to the actual event in question. False memories, I feel like I've talked to people in the past about having a false memory of like, if you've ever, like, for example, had say you had something happen in your childhood and you go to talk maybe about to a sibling or parent about something that happened in your childhood, and they say, no, it didn't happen that way, it happened this way. That would be kind of like false memories, like where people have the same event but that closely resemble each other, but maybe it's not like exactly the actual fact by fact things that are another potential cause is confabulation, which is defined as the creation of false memories in the absence of attempts of deception. So really what this means is that another cause, or another potential cause of the Mandela effect is people who spread false information but without realizing that they're doing it, or without
Okay.
realizing that they're spreading misinformation, like, and not intentionally being dishonest or misleading. So it's kind of like the same thing as like a false memory, in the sense of like, you kind of remember incorrectly, or maybe like you had the wrong information, but then so you spread that information being misinformed, and
Yeah.
then you unintentionally kind of are misleading with the information that you have. So I don't know really why that would happen. Like, I don't know why we would have it in our minds, for example, that Nelson Mandela died in the 80s. I don't know where we would have got that misinformation, but
That's
obviously
true. Yeah.
that would have been, a common thing, and then they passed it along, just
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. Another possible explanation is priming, which is a phenomenon in which exposure to one stimulus influences how a person responds to subsequent related stimulus. So basically what that means is that, if you've heard of like suggestibility, how suggestibility can influence a person's memories of an event. A good example might be that if you don't quite, have you ever had this happen where you don't quite remember something happening in your past, but you hear the same story over and over from somebody, that you almost feel like you've experienced it? And that's kind of what suggestibility is. Like, for example, sometimes my dad tells a lot of stories. Like, he likes to tell me stories about his past, or about his childhood, or maybe sometimes he likes to tell me stories about what my brother and I did as kids, and funny things that he found funny about my brother and I when we were children. I sometimes, that's the power of suggestibility, where I sometimes have trouble remembering if a memory I have is a memory, or a memory that I have is just a story that he's told me about myself as a child. And I remember,
Right. That
so
makes sense.
yeah, so that's just kind of suggestibility. What it means by suggestibility
Okay.
is that, that's just a possible cause of a Mandela effect, of someone maybe suggested that something's happening, and then it just kind of gained, sort of like a mass hysteria. Many people had the same sort of suggestion given to them, and then they all kind of believed it.
Okay.
And then, of
That makes, I
course,
mean, all that makes sense.
yeah. So again, I don't know where all the sources of those things would come from, but our final last sort of explanation here is the true explanation, which is, of course, that we're living in alternative or realities or parallel universes. So that's, of course, the actual truth.
That is, well, it makes me wonder, because like all of this sounds, I mean, and a lot of this, of course, are memories and stuff like that of like before technology was super prevalent in everyday life. So now that technology is super prevalent in everyday life, and a lot of families like are recording a lot of moments and stuff like that, it makes me wonder if in the future Mandela effects will cease to exist, if we are like, no, I literally have video proof right here that this happened, or like, no, like this right here of like when this was occurring and like my reaction to it and blah blah blah. It makes me wonder if like the Mandela effect is going to be a dying trend in the future, or if it's going to be proven to be like an alternate timeline thing, because it's like, well, here's my reaction to it, but it's showing me right here like this didn't happen, like that being like proof of like the ultimate like timeline like idea there. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where that goes in the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that kind of logic. And the only thing I'm kind of concerned about is that how easily manipulated media can be. And I wonder, with how much we can easily manipulate media, if the wrong narrative will be remembered or proven. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Big Brother stuff for sure.
Yeah. So especially with things like reality shows, I think that's going to be a big issue with, they call them reality TV shows and stuff, but it's not reality, it's staged most of
No,
the time.
yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of wonder if people are going to look at that, hundreds of years from now, and be like, that's really how they were. They were so dramatic, or they were so whatever they want to talk about. So there's kind of that issue of where, as well, if they don't have context, like
Right.
even though they have all this video proof, they don't have context of what it means in the society and culture.
That's
So
true. That's true.
that'll be kind of a whole issue in itself.
Yeah. And like I was gonna rebuttal that for a second of like, well, like they have a bunch of other videos that they can look to, and like we're providing a lot of context for them. But at the same time, like I'm sure that people like in ancient Roman times thought that they were giving us a whole bunch of context as well. subtle as to like what they were talking about, and still people to this day are arguing about like, well, that's not what he meant by that. So I would have just stuck my foot in my own mouth. Beep, boop, beep. Yes, that is the sound of a cliffhanger. Today, we covered what a Mandela effect is and the different reasonings as to why they may happen. Make sure to tune in next week to figure out different examples of Mandela effect and to listen to Jenna and Lacey absolutely lose their minds over Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Thank you for listening to Hot Takes Cool Updates. Make sure to email us at hottakescoolupdates@gmail.com on your thoughts of Mandela effects, how they might occur, or maybe some examples you'd like for us to cover us next week. Looking forward to seeing you then. Bye!